Pocahontas follows the adventures and struggles of the chief's daughter Pocahontas and English settler John Smith. The Englishmen have come to the New World in search for gold and have invaded the Indians' territory, causing aggression between the two groups. When Pocahontas meets John Smith, she must choose which course to take, the one her father wants her to follow or her heart. There is conflict over the two groups and over the land because of its war declared. Pocahontas and John Smith must work together to stop this war and fight for their chance to be together. Pocahontas is about a conflict between immigrants and native people. The immigrants want to come in and take the gold, while the native people just seek to protect their land, with the exception of John Smith, who sought adventure. You can see individualism in the immigrants, especially in Radcliffe, who only wants the gold for himself. And you can see collectivism in the native tribes, where they all work together to achieve a common goal, especially when they call warriors from other parts of their land to defeat these so-called white demons. There is definite power struggles in this movie. You can see them in the relationship between Pocahontas and her father. First of all, her father is older and a male and has power over her because simply he is her father, and yells at her when she disobeys him and runs off. As far as the power struggle between the immigrants and the natives believe that they have the power because it is their land. However, the immigrants believe that they have the power because they have stronger weapons and a common goal and are planning on wiping all of the Indians out.
To talk about the historical aspects of this film, we could go into the historical accuracies, but that's not really the main focus of our study. Just want to say that the biggest one is probably the ages of the main characters. In reality, Pocahontas was around the age of 12 and John Smith was in his 30s. But after all, there's a cinematic imperative to that. The 2 years between when John Smith arrived in America and when he left would not fit in a 90-minute film. Anyway, the film represents several types of history. It represents social history for the most part, dealing with the interactions between star-crossed lovers and lower class versus upper class, that sort of thing. Some political history, referring to the Virginia Company and that sort of thing, and some culture group history in the way they depict the colonial settlers and the Powhatan people. Histories that are absent history, naturally. Racial history. There is actually some surviving oral tradition, which wasn't published until 2007, and national history. They don't go at all into the history of the Powhatan Confederacy, which was a collection of over 30 tribes that Chief Powhatan was the head chief of. So we assume that the target audience of this film is mainstream American culture. You can see that in the way they depict the characters. Sympathetic characters, such as Pocahontas, John Smith, Pocahontas' best friend, they are shown as most resembling Americans, especially accent-wise. John Smith has no English accent, and Pocahontas doesn't sound much like her father either. And villainous characters are made as foreign as possible. You know, when you look at Ratcliffe wearing that ridiculous purple suit all the time and voiced by David Ogden Stiers, which doesn't get much more British than that. Or the emotionless, body-painted Kocoum, who has like 2 lines in the movie and does 2 things: stand around, look serious, and try to kill John Smith. So I guess you could tell that the filmmaker's intentions in showing this intercultural encounter were intended to be more morally instructive than realistic.
Examples of immigration are very apparent in Pocahontas. The people immigrating from Great Britain, coming into the New World, are the land that Pocahontas and her people occupied. As Pocahontas slowly introduces the brutish John Smith to a world in which everything has a spirit, assimilation begins to occur within him. Initially, he was completely against Pocahontas' ways, but he ended up being able to see all the beauty in her beliefs and the motivation behind them. Even though he personally feels as if he is slowly beginning to understand the way she does things, assimilation on a large-scale level does not occur with the rest of the British and Pocahontas' tribe.
Pocahontas does a great job of depicting intercultural relationships. When Pocahontas first meets Captain John Smith, it shows that sometimes it is hard for different cultures to communicate because of language differences, as well as nonverbal differences such as waves to say hello. Pocahontas at first does not understand what John Smith is trying to say to her. Unlike in real life, she got a gust of wind that made her suddenly understand. When the tribe as well as the Europeans are going to basically combat over the proposed death of John Smith, all the background colors suddenly become vibrant shades of red, almost like the shades of blood. The red even reflects off of everyone's skin tones, making them all like the shade of red, which makes them appear angry. Issues of proximity in intercultural relationships, because it shows how Pocahontas and John Smith cannot stay together, because he has to go home, which is a far distance away. Due to the distance and the era, they would have no way of communication and would not be able to stay together, so they end things.
In Pocahontas, conflict is seen from the battling differences between the Indian tribe and the new white settlers. Prejudice and stereotyping is seen from both sides because of the lack of understanding between the groups. In the song Drums of War, Chief Powhatan says, "They're different from us, which means they can't be trusted." That quote alone can sum up the main threat that is felt from the groups. Each group had their own reasons for wanting to fight. The white settlers came in hopes of finding gold and knew that they would be able to take down any savages that were in their path. The Indian tribe had their reasons for fighting because when the white settlers invaded, 2 of their members were injured and 1 was killed. How this movie related to intercultural communication in regards to conflict is through prejudice and stereotyping. This is seen all throughout the movie with the names that each group calls each other. The Indians call the white settlers pale visitors, savages, beast, dangerous, and white demons. The white settlers call the Indians bloodthirsty savages and dirty red-skinned devils.
We picked this movie because it is something that we have all grown up with, and it's interesting to see how intercultural relationships were shown to us as kids and how we can analyze it now that we have grown. As we have discussed, there are many different aspects of the movie that can be analyzed for intercultural communication, and even though this movie is not historically accurate, it still has moral lessons that we can all take away.
Disney's classic, Pocahontas, now available to own on video.